did something that only the McLaren team from Woking in the UK had done before them, and that was to score more than 11 Formula One race victories in a row. So, yep, Red Bull wrote themselves into F1 history. They have now won 12 races between the last one of 2022 and 11 this season. I'm going to wait because I think counting the last one of 2022 isn't really, it's a bit of a cop-out. I'm going to wait to Spa, when Max Verstappen has been dominant the last couple of races, the last couple of years, and there he might well win 12 races in a single season. And then Red Bull Racing from Milton Keynes will write themselves into history once again, won't they? And, you know, we were there to watch it. Just to explain what's going on here on the podium, Mark Thompson, the team photographer there in the natty Red Bull shirt, the one who looks like a sort of, you know, mechanic who's been around the world a few times and seen it all. Don't drink it, Tomo. Bad luck. No, you keep it on there. He is preparing for the Red Bull team photo. And to mark this historic moment, thank you. To mark this historic moment, they are going to do the team photo on the podium. The location where Lando Norris broke Max Verstappen's trophy, the lovely porcelain trophy. And if the only thing that Max Verstappen had to worry about today was getting away from Lewis Hamilton from pole position, which he did brilliantly, was actually what happened to the trophy. And it was Lando's fantastic little pump, the little bit where he boffs the trophy on the podium. Max's trophy was very precariously balanced there, came off and broke at the stem. Where is the trophy, I hear you ask? The trophy is actually where Max Verstappen keeps his crash helmets, lying in two pieces at the back of the Red Bull garage. The Red Bull mechanics won't let us see it because the car is in pieces, and they put the screens up, which I suppose is fair enough, if not much fun. But yeah, there we go. It is in a couple of pieces, the trophy at the back of the garage. So yeah, you know, it didn't really. He never looked like he was going to be troubled off the start. It was a perfect start for Max Verstappen. If we don't know already, Max Verstappen won, so here's P1 and Sergio Perez's P3. We'll get on to Sergio Perez's road to redemption in a minute. But yeah, got it all at the start. Perfect start from Max Verstappen. Steam down, straight ahead. No worries about a lack of grip over on the dusty side of the track. Straight down into P1 while Lewis Hamilton fought with the McLarens and was never really challenged from there on. Sergio Perez got past Alonso early on, which was key. Max Verstappen pitted on lap 23. Sergio Perez pitted a couple of laps later on 25 and won by the largest margin, I think, all season, 33.7 seconds. Checo had a much better day, and when you consider that Sergio Perez started this weekend in the wall, having broken his front suspension and some of the nice new bits that were specially brought to this track to improve the car's cooling on these side pods. At the beginning of these side pods, you can't see because they're in their little sort of polystyrene houses here, very nice. But those side pods are new. Sergio Perez biffed them early on. When you consider that's how he started his weekend, that is redemption personified, isn't it? He was hunted down by Lewis Hamilton, but had it all under control. And as Max Verstappen said, this car was a rocket ship. What I thought was particularly key afterwards was how Max said that he'd been working on his starts. I must say, having watched quite a few of them at the end of the pit lane, they were pretty good. Unbelievable. You had a rocket ship today, so thank you for the team. Christian Horner talking about how this team can look at themselves in the same way as McLaren looked at themselves at the time, and he had a word for Ron Dennis, which I thought was nice from Christian Horner, crediting Ron Dennis with the success that he had with McLaren after all those years. But yeah, it's a big day, 12 in a row for Red Bull, so congratulations to them. They leave Hungary, as I said, having made a little bit of Formula One history today. Right, Ferrari. And they didn't really make history today. In fact, it was pretty disappointing. But there are different ways to learn how it was disappointing and what Ferrari can learn from it. And, well, this feels like they've been learning how to win races and how to win a championship for 2 proper seasons here. And through Matteo Binotto stewardship and now into Fred Vasseur, they need to start getting their act together, because it wasn't getting their act together today at all. While we see the prancing horse on the nose cone. The reality of life is that all of this stuff needs to go in these packing cases to Spa-Francorchamps behind it, and that's what they look like, all packed up onto a soft-sided articulated truck. So yeah, as all of these things will start their journey right now to Spa-Francorchamps, north by northwest to Spa-Francorchamps, Ferrari are wondering where their pace went, because, well, they're the fourth fastest car now after Red Bull, after McLaren, after Mercedes, and then Ferrari. I suppose it's better than Aston Martin, who now, on the evidence of today, is the fifth fastest car in Formula One, but it's not where Ferrari or Aston Martin want to be. Carlos Sainz was a soft tyre starter, up 5 places to P6. That worked very well for them. Pitted onto the hard tyre on lap 16. Charles Leclerc pitted on lap 18 with a very slow stop. It was a problem with a wheel gun. So again, them learning how to perfect these races. You know, it's a wheel gun issue, so they'll learn how to deal with that. If you're wondering why those tyres look like that, and those are the tyres that went to the end of the race, that is the pickup. So when the engineers at the end of the race says the drivers go offline and pick up rubber, that is picking up rubber. So that's the rubber that actually accrues on the tyres and adds a couple of kilos just to make sure that if the car did lose any bodywork or anything and was a little bit underweight or in danger of being underweight, not that I'm saying the Ferrari was, that the drivers can add a couple of kilos worth of tyre rubbish, essentially, to those hot and sticky tyres and make sure that they're well above the weight limit at scrutineering at the end of the race. As for the rest of Ferrari's day, yeah, with the wheel gun issue, that dropped Charles Leclerc down from P11 down to P11. He made his way back up to P8, but then Sainz dropped to P7. Leclerc got a speeding penalty and a 5-second penalty, which really hurt him. And yeah, pitted again on lap 45 and 46. Both Ferrari's drivers did. Sainz got passed by Russell, and then Leclerc dropped down with the penalty. So yeah, that's what happened to them today, and they need to improve as they go to the next race in Spa-Francorchamps. Let's do Mercedes today. And I know what Toto Wolff is saying when he says that Mercedes have the second fastest car in Formula One ahead of McLaren. What he means, contradicted as he was quite quickly by both his drivers, Hamilton and Russell said that McLaren is still quick with them. What Toto means is that at the end of the stint, when the Mercedes drivers have finished looking after their tyres, they were quicker than the McLaren. And that's true, but it does, when you look at it, that Lewis Hamilton was 4th today and George Russell 6th, and the McLarens were 2nd and 5th, I think it's difficult to argue that they, on the face of it, the Mercedes is purely, in race pace, the second quickest car. Well, you can argue it all you want. I think there's statistics, there are ways of arguing those statistics either way. In the end, Lewis Hamilton lost out from pole position after being sort of crowded out and swallowed up by the McLaren. Sorry about that, guys, Lewis said on the radio afterwards. His engineer, Pete Bonington, said, "Don't sweat it, Lewis. It's a very long and hot race for the rest of it." But he was down to P4. Then Russell was up to P13 from P18. Lewis Hamilton pitted on lap 17, but McLaren covered. George Russell went long on the hard to lap 29 and then onto the medium. George Russell pitted again on lap 48 onto the medium. A good recovery from George Russell as he hunted down the Ferraris and passed them. But Lewis Hamilton caught and passed Oscar Piastri for P4 because the McLaren cooked his tyres and Lewis Hamilton didn't. And then he closed on Sergio Perez. 1.5 seconds he finished behind Sergio Perez, did Lewis Hamilton. So yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you're wondering how many spare front wings Mercedes have, it's 4. So there you go, interesting. And has this one got the downplane on it? It has. This is one of the Mercedes upgrades this weekend. With these, what I like to call, well, they call them the downplanes. And being a fan of submarines, you know, Hunt for Red October, favourite film, they call them the downplanes, which is a nice word for them. Right full rudder, downplane angle, Kieran. No? Okay, you're not following me? So there we go, that's what's going on at Red Bull. As for what they said on the radio afterwards, Lewis Hamilton was pretty motivational once again. Said, look, you know, it's a tough day today, but it wasn't our day. Thanks everybody in the factory for pushing. Let's get some upgrades onto the car ASAP. And yep, we're on it, came the response from his team. Now, can we all give a hug to everybody in this Alpine team? Can we all give a hug? Can we all give a weird sort of collective hug to Alpine? Because when you consider these mechanics, these boys and girls in the... oh, hang on, here's the McLaren photo. Do you know what? Go to the McLaren photo, Kieran, and then I'll finish out my thought on Alpine. But, you know, when you consider they've had long days, long nights, and they've come away with 2 DNFs, you'll be hard-pressed to argue otherwise that it's been a waste of all their efforts and quite literally a waste of time. It wasn't their fault. Zhou Guanyu lost control and then cannoned into both Alpines, and that meant that they were both out after lap 1. Not much more to say about it. Ocon into Gasly. Gasly, no right rear tyre. Ocon broke his seat, got a bit of a back injury, but he's okay. And yeah, one of the worst weekends in Alpine's living memory, in the living memory of the Alpine team, with both cars out and a DNF. Bitter and frustrating were the words that they've used to describe it. But yeah, one of the worst weekends in living memory. Right, let's do McLaren, because we're seeing, I don't know what we're waiting for, because everyone's here. Lando P2, Oscar P5. And there is a trophy on the ground there that hasn't bitten the dust. Let's see if Lando can break 2 porcelain trophies today. But so pleased, as many of you will be, to see Lando with their second P2 in succession. Second podium in a row. And that's what they said on the radio to Lando afterwards, after the requisite whooping. Brilliantly managed, 2 podiums in a row. Fantastic, well done, Lando Norris. And, you know, if you think that Lando Norris is as fast a driver inherently as Max Verstappen, I don't think you'll be too far off. McLaren certainly think he is. I think Red Bull think he probably is, which is why Red Bull are interested potentially in Lando's services sometime in the future. Yeah, careful of that trophy, Lando. Don't break another one. That's exactly what they're saying to him. This podium's got to get back to working. You know, it was a great start, actually, by Oscar Piastri into P2. Lando had to react to, and Lando was P3 early on, but then Lando had to react to Lewis Hamilton's pit stop, but that meant that he undercut Oscar Piastri, getting away quicker on the fresher tyre, and with a great outlap. Oh, we're waiting for Zach Brown, I see, and Oscar Piastri, I get it. Careful of the trophy. Oh, Zach's going to take it. No! Don't do it, Zach. Very good. Poor manufacturers of the porcelain Hungarian trophies will have their they'll have the super glue out, won't they, or sending some super glue to Red Bull Racing. But yeah, that meant with a great outlap, he undercut Oscar Piastri, and that secured Lando's P2. As it happened, at the end, Oscar Piastri cooked his tyres, and that allowed Lewis Hamilton to go past him. That's what Oscar was told by his engineer, Tom Stallard, at the end of the race. He says, look, we've got some tyre stuff to review. And Oscar said, look, I'm not sure why I couldn't hang on to the tyre, but I couldn't. Here we go. Come on, lads, you can do better than that. Oh, was that it? Good. Should we see if we can grab Lando to get his view on what happened? Maybe he wants to congratulate his crew, and that's understandable. And we've got the rest of the teams to do. But maybe we can grab him for a quick word. But who is taking care of the trophy? Sophie is very wise. He's not going to break another one. Oh, he's off. He's off. Oh, do you know what? He wants to go away. I'm not going to go. He wants to go away. He wants to go and talk to his mates. And Rachel has already spoken to Lando in the pen. So let's crack on, because yeah, it was a great day for McLaren. Right, on these images, we will go to a break and join us for more Notebook afterwards, when we'll do the other 5 teams and what happened to them in a very hot and steamy and eventful, well, not so eventful, but anyway, a hot and steamy Hungarian Grand Prix. More Notebook in a bit. Hiya, welcome back to the Race Notebook from the 2023 Hungarian Grand Prix. And look at poor Zhou Guanyu over there by the doing his own team's socials. And it was so promising, wasn't it? Their best qualifying, Alfa Romeo Sauber's best qualifying since 2012. I think it's 11 years since they had such good qualifying positions. Just gone away in a bit of a unnecessary way. It's just such a shame. They could have scored points today, but didn't. Valtteri Bottas 12th, Zhou Guanyu 16th. A disastrous start. Zhou caused a train reaction when he misjudged his braking at turn 1, took out the Alpines. He went down to P16. Bottas was P12. Bottas pitted on lap 10 to react to Alex Albon, but would end up behind him for the whole race. Zhou picked up a 5-second penalty, which he served. And when he did his second pit stop, and Bottas pitted for a second time on lap 41, chased Alex Albon for P11, but missed out by 9/10 of a second. Zhou, a lonely race, having caused that collision early on. And, you know, when they need points so badly, Alfa Romeo Sauber, to throw away an opportunity like that will be a salutary lesson. And I feel so sorry for Zhou, because he's a good guy, and, you know, he didn't get in that's race in Spain, when he scored the points, having benefited from a qualifying, a good qualifying position, just wasn't able to do it today. I'm not going to bother him by telling him how sorry I feel for him, but I think he'll be beating himself up harder than anybody else. Right, what has happened to Aston Martin's pace? Fernando Alonso is blaming the new construction of the tyres that we had at Silverstone. The team is saying it's not the tyres. We think it's just that we've stayed our gap to Red Bull and everybody else has stayed. Well, no, Aston's gap to Red Bull has stayed as it is, and everybody else has improved to fill that gap. So, I don't know, who do you believe? I'm kind of tempted to believe Fernando Alonso, because I think something has changed since Silverstone, and Fernando's wise enough to know what it is, and I think it's probably more that the team aren't telling us, because, well, they don't. So I'm with Fernando. I think they've suffered quite badly from the new construction of Pirelli tyres since Silverstone. And how do they get themselves out of that particular pickle? They have upgrades, something small coming for Spa, but bigger stuff after the summer break, and they are going to need it, because they are now the third or even the fourth quickest, as we were talking about earlier, car in Formula One. Maybe even the fifth quickest. I'll revise that, the fifth quickest. But nice to see that they've got a hot glue gun in there. And in amongst the composite box of tools, the composite heater, the extension lead, 1 mini compressor, 2 cordless heat guns, and 5 composite drills. If you could lend a hot glue gun to Red Bull Racing, Max Verstappen needs it for his trophy. Alonso was 9th today, and Lance Stroll 10th on an early 2-stop strategy that didn't really work. Alonso had a steady stint P8 behind Sergio Perez, stayed P8, stopped for a second time on lap 46, but it was a slow stop. Closed down Sainz and finished 4 seconds behind the Ferrari. So did as much as he could do on the 20th anniversary of his first win in Formula One, Fernando Alonso. Lance Stroll, as I say, with a compromised sort of early short first stint to stop, pitted onto lap 12, on lap 10 onto the hard tyre, then again on lap 35 onto the hard, and then did a long stint at the end. Maybe they were thinking of the 3-stop and were persuaded, or saw what everybody else was seeing was that tyre degradation actually wasn't that bad, and converted onto the 2. But when you do that, you end yourself up with a slightly compromised strategy. But yeah, that's why Lance Stroll was 23 seconds behind Fernando Alonso, because he didn't have a symmetrical 2-stop like his Spanish teammate. There you are. Right, let's move on to Haas F1. And yeah, why, you could argue, why, same question for them, why are they suffering so much with their race pace when qualifying seems to be okay? Because there's no points for them. Hulkenberg P14, Kevin Magnussen P17. Kevin Magnussen reported Russell was using his DRS when he wasn't a second behind another car, and anyway in a place where it wasn't authorised on the run from turn 2, the little straight from turn 2 to turn 3. So I don't know what that was about. I'll chase that up in Spa, because apparently you can have some sort of anomalies when the DRS works when it's not authorised. But Kevin was behind Russell early on and radioed that back to the team. But then he got passed by Alex Albon. Hulkenberg pitted twice, second time on lap 40, raced Yuki Tsunoda to the end, and finished ahead of him just. Magnussen came home last of the finishers, because Logan Sargent didn't finish, and that's I suppose they got a car to the end, whereas Alpine didn't, and Williams didn't get both cars to the end, but that is ouchie for Haas F1. Wish them better. Right, AlphaTauri, and you would never have believed that this was Daniel Ricciardo's first race back and there was any pressure on the grid. He was as happy as I've ever seen him. He was smiling coming back from the driver's parade. He had his headphones on. He was talking to his engineer. He was like, yeah, we got this. I think we're going to have a good race. And so how gutting was it that he was a casualty of the first lap shenanigans caused by Zhou Guanyu, etc., etc. And that meant that he was down to last. he spent a lot of the first stint last to Daniel Ricciardo, and then actually an early stop off the hard tyres onto the mediums worked for him and got his way back up to the top 13th where he started, and that was really it. So qualified P13, finished P13, but learned a lot about the car and himself, and that thin, trim frame of his worked perfectly well. Didn't have to worry about any kind of physical fatigue in the heat, and was pleased with his own fitness, was Danny Rick, and we'll hope for better for him in Spa-Francorchamps in a week's time. Same for Yuki Tsunoda. We'll hope for better for him because he had a pretty miserable race, finished 0.2 behind Hulkenberg. So Yuki will look with his engineers, and his engineers will say, look, Yuki, if we had done something differently, you would have at least beaten Hulkenberg. So frustrating to finish 0.2 of a second behind the Haas, but that's where he is, down in 15th. And yeah, couldn't make the medium work as well as Daniel Ricciardo did, even though it's Ricciardo's first weekend in the car. And finally, we will do Williams, where Alex Albon was a few seconds off a point today. He was 11th. Good drive again by Alex Albon. He pitted on lap 8 onto the hard tyre, and again on lap 33 onto another hard tyre, having started on the medium. Logan ran ahead of Ricciardo, pitted twice, second time on lap 36. Alex chased K-Mag, got up to P11 and stayed there under pressure from Valtteri Bottas. Logan Sargent spun on lap 64 or 69. It was the last lap, wasn't it? Or 69. And retired from the Grand Prix on 33-lap-old tyres. So I think in Logan's defence, not that I'm here to defend Logan Sargent, but I do defend him when I can, he was one of those ones who did an early... has it got a load of rainwater in it? Oh, right, great, fantastic. This will be satisfying to watch. No? Or are they just unveiling it in a very dramatic way? Can't see any rainwater in it. It's probably evaporated. But yeah, Logan Sargent was on knackered tyres, so that's why he spun, and then they thought it wasn't worth continuing, and retired. Right, well, that was a bit of an anticlimax. Kind of sums up the weekend. But hey, at least we saw history made here, and we got Lando Norris getting his second podium in succession. So we will see you for the Belgian Grand Prix in a week's time. These guys have got to get to Belgium. We've got to get to Belgium. So see you in Spa-Francorchamps in just a few days' time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.